Hi. I have felt quite bad yesterday. And I mean, I felt bad physically. I got a splitting headache. I was lying down for a few hours. And this kind of came out of nowhere. I spent those few hours wondering if I ate something that might have been off without me knowing what it could have been. I actually tend to spiral whenever I feel especially bad, all of a sudden, in a physical sense. I often tend to spiral trying to understand what it was that I did to make me feel that way. If I messed up my regime or ate the wrong food or ate food at the wrong time or anything else, I don't know. So I keep wondering what it was. And so I had an episode of that yesterday. It wasn't as bad as it used to be. By the evening I felt a little bit better, and I remembered what I usually wish I would remember at the beginning of those episodes, instead of spiraling and blaming myself and trying to find something to blame myself for. So I wanted to share that. And it's a bit of an unusual thing because I haven't really come across anyone talking about it, but this is something I've discovered over the past few years. I'm quite highly meteorologically sensitive. So, due to whatever it is that made me the way I am, due to the sensitivities and weaknesses, vulnerabilities of my nervous system, I tend to react sometimes with things like that, with feeling headaches, feeling weak, feeling dizzy, having very low energy on certain days. And that actually much more often tends to correlate to, let's call it, space weather. For example, if there's a geomagnetic storm or a sun flare, and those happen very often, I wouldn't probably react to each and every one, but depending on whatever it is, actually, I don't know what that depends on. Sometimes there's an especially strong magnetic storm in the Earth's atmosphere, and that would just have me completely incapacitated. Other times it's not as bad, and there probably are a few other factors at play, such as if my body is healthier, it might react less, or if I'm actually in the middle of a cold, I might react a lot more, things like that. So I can't really speak right now for like the correlation of all these small factors, because I don't know. I keep observing myself and how this works, but at the end of the day, there's only so much we can know. I mean, if I had internal radars for whatever is going on in space weather, I'm not sure that it's even reasonable to think I could ever fully relate them to things that could be perhaps measurable. I do have an app on my phone right now that tells me about solar flares and magnetic storms, and that's one of the ways I was able to see this relation to the way I feel in all my chronic states. But again, it doesn't always, it's not always a solar storm, so I wouldn't even know what it was some of the time. If there is a solar storm, then it's kind of obvious what's going on in that case. And while we're on the topic of solar storms, there are a few kinds. There's the radiation storms, there's the geomagnetic storms, and also different people tend to react to them at different times. For example, some people tend to react to a solar flare or any of these storms caused by solar activities ahead of time. So sometimes even a day or two before it even happens. Then other people tend to feel the effects most when there is the peak of this activity is going on, and for other people, yet it may be that they feel the effects a little bit after it has transpired. So keep that in mind if it's something that you want to look into. Also, it is generally accepted, even in modern Western medicine, that people with chronic illnesses react to geomagnetic storms with usually symptoms of weakness and neurological things, dizziness, etc. So now I've told you about that. I'll tell you what I actually started to say, and that was that over the past few years I've come up with a way of checking if the way I was feeling was actually not so much something internal, such as possible food poisoning or messing up my regime or whatever, but actually related to some kind of space weather, for want of a better word. And that is simply to be in contact with other people who tend to be sensitive to space weather. For example, yesterday, by the evening, when I was feeling a little better, I just wrote to my friend, who is quite sensitive to space weather. Now, this friend is actually quite healthy, neurotypical as far as we know, and doesn't have many health concerns except for being a rather sensitive soul, at least by some metrics. So I just wrote to her, "It's quite a weird day, isn't it?" And she confirmed. She was also feeling all over the place, kind of weird and under the weather, and she also had a cold, which kind of intensified the experience. And another thing that I do is I notice when, like, the people I follow on social media would also post things like that when they're feeling a bit weird on a particular day. And if that was a day that I was feeling exceptionally out of balance, then I see that actually it's like some kind of solar wind was blowing one way or another, affecting quite a lot of folks. And what this knowledge does for me primarily is that I get to get off my own back about trying to figure out what I did wrong to make myself feel much worse than I usually do all of a sudden. And I wanted to share that today. I find this topic interesting and it really does help. It helps me at least. Yeah, thanks for listening.